Most people remember Neversoft for Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, a genre-defining series and a legacy any studio would be proud of. They also carried the Guitar Hero torch from Guitar Hero 3 through Warriors of Rock, just before the rhythm game boom fizzled out. But outside of skateboards and plastic guitars, Neversoft only developed a handful of other titles. Among those was a gritty, open-world western released 5 years before Red Dead Redemption, a game simply titled Gun. By 2003, Neversoft was in just about the best position a game developer could hope for. Their yearly Tony Hawk releases kept a steady stream of revenue flowing, and kept their parent company, Activision, happy. But after 5 years of working on the same series, the team was ready for something new. That break came in the form of pitching a new IP to Activision, a game that would trade skateboards for horses and the gritty streets of New Jersey for the untamed American frontier. Neversoft sold it as GTA meets Spaghetti Western, and Activision happily greenlit the idea. Gun was released at a time when the open world genre was dominated by games chasing Grand Theft Auto's success, often mimicking its style and urban setting. The idea of applying that formula to a Western hadn't really been tested, which put Neversoft in a challenging position. There were so many elements they had to nail for this game to work. Rockstar's own Red Dead Revolver, released a year earlier, proved there was still an appetite for the Wild West. The ambitious ideas Neversoft explored in Gun, from horseback combat to an open frontier of side activities, were bold for the time, pushing the limits of what an open-world game could be, and expanding the genre's horizons. With just 18 months of development time, Neversoft crunched hard to bring all their ambitious ideas to life, many of which had never been attempted in a Tony Hawk game. Fortunately, they had already started implementing cutscenes in Tony Hawk's Underground, so the groundwork for storytelling was in place.
Winner takes the tape.
According to project lead Chad Finley in The Making of Gun, two of the biggest technical challenges were level streaming and building an AI system that could respond to the player in believable ways. On top of that, the studio had to be split into 2 teams, ensuring they could finish Tony Hawk's American Wasteland, which shipped that very same year. Gun was released in fall of 2005, on just about every platform of its time, but the version everyone was talking about was the Xbox 360. As one of the few launch titles for Microsoft's new console, Gun was likely the very first game some people ever played on it. I didn't revisit the 360 version for this video, but I did play it back when I was younger, and I remember having a blast with it. It wasn't the best looking game at launch, but Neversoft made smart use of new hardware to add a level of polish you didn't see on the other versions. When it comes to differences between versions, there really weren't many. With Gun's already tight development schedule, Neversoft didn't have the time or resources to add much beyond some visual enhancements for the Xbox 360. The next-gen version featured normal maps, a technique that was still new to the team at the time, as character artist John Bailey admitted, as well as higher resolution textures. Beyond those improvements, the experience was essentially the same across all platforms. I came across an incredible GameSpot walkthrough that did a great job at breaking down the stat system and other mechanics in Gun. It ended up being my main resource while replaying the game, and honestly, it made me a little nostalgic. A little more digging, and I found out the guy who wrote the guide is now an archery YouTuber. I went down a little rabbit hole with his content, and I recommend it if it's something you're into. I'll leave a link down in the description. Scotty, if you're watching this, thanks for the guide. It was an invaluable tool in making this video. Before we head to the Wild Frontier, if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. I also want to give a shout out to my channel members. For just $1 a month, you too could support my channel, gain access to early uploads, and get your name in my next video. Now let's take a look at Gun. The game opens in the mountains of Montana, where Colton and his father Ned are hunting elk.
Got him.
Colton White is voiced by none other than Thomas Jane, the Punisher, while Ned is voiced by country music legend Chris Christopherson. Right out of the gate, I need to emphasize that the voice acting in this game is top notch. It's so good that you sometimes take it for granted. A detail that I don't think is ever actually explained in the game, but I found while researching, is that apparently Colton is 16 years old, give or take. I'll include my explanation for this as we get to it in the lore, but just keep that in mind for a few jokes I have coming up. Ned is planning on selling their game to a steamboat that is going to be passing through, and apparently he promised the cook some quail. So it's the perfect opportunity to get familiar with the shooting mechanics. The game starts you out with a Colt 1851 Navy, though according to the Internet Movie Firearms Database, it occasionally resembles a Colt 1861 Navy. This is also the gun that appears in Colton's hands during cutscenes, regardless of which weapon you have equipped. Ned breaks the first rule of gun safety and heads downrange to spook the quail out of the brush so Colton can take them out. Fortunately for him, I'm a decent shot, despite the game trying its damnedest to throw me off with this mouse acceleration. He finally comes to his senses and ducks down as I massacre these birds with Quick Draw, a system that turned out to be my greatest ally throughout this playthrough. No matter how hard it was to get used to the mouse sensitivity, Quick Draw was always there for me. Like similar systems, you fill a meter by landing kills, and once activated, time slows down to let you line up shots. What sets Quick Draw apart from other bullet time systems is how you could only use Quick Draw with your revolvers. No matter what weapon you've got equipped, activating it will automatically switch you to your pistol. It also shifts the camera in the first person and lets you cycle between targets, which is a nice touch. After killing some wolves, it's Colton's turn to hunt elk. The game has you swap to your rifle, which is a Winchester 1866. This bad boy is going to carry you through this game, take my word for it. Aiming down sights turns the game into a first-person shooter, allowing you to move while the screen is slightly zoomed in. But it's not always necessary. Gun has a bit of aim assist that makes taking out enemies from third person a breeze. You just need to get their head in the little rectangular reticule, and you're basically guaranteed a headshot. We prove why man is on the top of the food chain by slaughtering some more wolves, and then nature swings back when Ned gets attacked by a fucking bear.
I'm in danger!
A hit like that would kill a normal man, but not Ned White. He yells for Colton to grab his rifle and fight back, and I just stand around looking confused as to whether or not I actually grab the rifle, wasting precious moments. Thankfully, Ned seems to be alright, and our steamboat is arriving just on time for one of the saddest title cards I've ever seen. I'm no expert in graphic design, but I think you want your title to stand apart from the background, and this is... never mind. Let's move on. Now, another note I'd like to make here is that the cutscenes in this game are fantastic. I rarely felt like they were dragging on, and I'm shamelessly a person who will skip cutscenes if they drag on, so I credit Neversoft for keeping them engaging. On board the steamboat, Ned takes this lady into a cabin and gets pissy when Colton tries to peep. Then this preacher strolls over, looking completely trustworthy with his sunken eyes and haunted stare, and starts talking to Colton. First by complimenting his meat like he's applying for a position in the Catholic Church, then by saying he feels safer knowing there's a man on board who knows how to handle a rifle. Reverend Reed is voiced by none other than Brad Dourif, who you might know as Chucky. It's fucking Chucky in my cowboy game.
What the hell?
Ned recommends that Colton follow him, and then the preacher throws a tomahawk into the back of that woman's head. Holy shit. He signals to a group of renegades to start attacking the steamboat, and it's a massacre. We have to fight our way through the boat to the upper deck in our first real taste of combat. Like I said earlier, there is a bit of aim assist, so clicking heads isn't too much of a struggle, unless you're fighting with the game's hit detection. I mean, come on, his head is right there. There's some more combat, a stationary cannon section, and then Ned gives you a coin for a brothel, drops a bombshell, and tosses your ass overboard. The last we see of Ned, he's whooping some ass with the butt of his rifle. In the next cutscene, we're introduced to the antagonist of this game, Thomas Magruder, a railroad tycoon and former Confederate Army major. Magruder is voiced by Lance Hendrickson, whose on-screen credits are in the hundreds, and you might recognize his voice as General Shepard for Modern Warfare 2. The voice cast in Gun is kind of insane looking back at it. Activision clearly saw potential in this project and wasn't shy about opening the checkbook. The scene reveals that Reverend Reed was on board the boat looking for a missing item, most likely what Ned and the woman were looking at in the safe. It also demonstrates how much of a sick son of a bitch Magruder is, going as far as cutting off Reed's ear when he failed to recover the item. Colton wakes up to a man named Honest Tom, going through his pockets. We learn that nobody survived the boat being raided, and 3 days have passed. Honest Tom is nice enough to give us a lesson in horseback riding, because it wouldn't be a true Western game if you couldn't ride horses. I'm looking at you, gunslinger. In Gun, every horse handles the same, so it doesn't matter which one you hop on, saddled or not. Horses are pretty essential when it comes to traveling, as Colton walks pretty slow, and the few times I was without a horse were not fun. The galloping system is simple. Tapping the sprint button gives you a quick boost as Colton spurs the horse, and holding it down allows you to gallop indefinitely since there's no stamina bar. But spurring comes at a cost. Each boost deals damage to your horse, and if you overdo it, the horse can die. This becomes especially frustrating during horseback combat when your horse is taking damage and you need to make a quick getaway. Now, speaking of horseback combat, there are a few different ways you could take down enemies while riding. You could trample them, perform a slide attack, or just use your regular weapons from the saddle. Aiming is a bit trickier on horseback, but I usually popped quick draw and picked off bandits without much trouble. Honest Tom shows us why the buffalo are extinct, and we beat his ass in a race. We realize he wasn't so honest after all, and we kill Tom and his friends and make our way to Dodge City. Dodge is a frontier town in Kansas with a few points of interest, the biggest being the Alhambra Saloon, a place that Ned had told Colton to go and present this fancy looking coin. Colton sits down for a drink and meets Jenny. She tells us that the woman on the boat was named Sadie and she was sent to Empire City but ended up running off. Before we can get much more out of her, this guy, who insists he get a proper poke in before me, starts some trouble. After shooting our way through the saloon, I snipe him while he holds Jenny hostage, and she gives me a Smith & Wesson Schofield. Or should I say, a gun.
Oh, that's why they call it that.
Gun features a variety of weapons, though each new one tends to feel more like a straight upgrade than a matter of personal preference. Unlike a game like Call of Juarez, where different revolvers might suit different playstyles, Gun encourages you to swap to the latest gear as soon as you get it, as there's usually a clear jump in power. Now that the prologue is basically over, we can roam around Dodge and check out some of the side activities. Gun features a surprisingly in-depth stat system with attributes that can be upgraded by completing side missions. Colton has 5 main stats: Gun Hand, which improves damage, accuracy, and reload speed; Quick Draw, which increases how long you can stay in bullet time; Melee, which boosts melee damage; Horse, which raises your horse's health and durability; and finally, Health, which, that's pretty self-explanatory. You could technically play through the entire game with your base stats, but it'll be a lot easier if you go through and upgrade them at least a little bit. Interacting with a wanted poster starts a bounty mission. There are a total of 12 bounties that have varying challenges associated with them, whether that be killing their posse to be able to take the target in alive, or killing a target and returning a stolen horse. Most bounties will give you the option of dead or alive, with alive giving you a higher cash reward. In order to take someone alive, you just need to shoot them until they get stunned, run up and grab them, and hit the option to subdue. The Pony Express missions usually involve transporting a package from one place to another as fast as you can. The time limit on these missions is extremely short, meaning you cannot fuck around. I have finished some of these with maybe a fraction of a second left. I started actually launching my character from the horse towards the goal and smashing the interact button hoping I would make it in time. It really is that close. You could also play poker, but I didn't. I'm not good at poker, so I didn't even bother trying. Deputy missions have Colton going around town killing bandits. Each instance usually has about 3 different tasks to complete and has you just running around the town. Federal Marshal missions usually involve stopping bandits from raiding the town of Empire. And ranch hand missions are exactly what they sound like. You round up cattle. Sheriff Denton wants our help protecting workers so they could build a bridge and open up the rest of the world map. After dying a lot more than I'm proud to admit, we're able to clear the bridge and head off to Empire. But first, I stop by the local general store to pick up some upgrades. You earn cash in this game by completing missions or just by mining gold with a pickaxe. You can spend that money on various upgrades to your gear or character. And for some reason, you can buy a scalping knife. If an enemy is still alive and crawling away after being shot, you could walk up and literally scalp them. There is no gameplay benefit to doing this, it just exists purely to make their death as brutal and excruciating as possible. Our next mission is to safely make it to Empire, and it seems the entire Apache population is trying to kill us. They've even resorted to extremist tactics, but we make it to Empire mostly unharmed. We're greeted by Mayor Hoodoo Brown, voiced by Ron fucking Perlman, as if the cast wasn't stacked enough. And then I spent an hour roaming around the map doing side missions. While the open world map may seem microscopic compared to modern games, Neversoft really did their best to make it feel authentic and full of activities. Dodge and Empire sit on opposite sides of the map, and there are a ton of things to do between them. I often found myself spending a good amount of time just messing around between missions, getting bounties, hunting for gold, just checking out the map. It really never felt dull. But we have to get back to main missions eventually. I meet up with Hoodoo Brown, or should I say Dutch Vanderlyn? Kinda. Hoodoo wants Colton to help him take down a resistance group that's stirring up trouble, a key figure being Chavez y Chavez. I probably butchered that. But during the mission, Hoodoo's deputies kill some innocent people, so I kill them. And then I make my way back to Hoodoo to ask him about all this corruption. But first, another 45 minutes of side missions. Every once in a while, bandits will spawn and try to attack you, and it's comical at how bad they are at being bandits. That didn't really fit anywhere else, so I'm saying that now. Colton confronts Hoodoo, the Reverend kills Jenny, and Colton gets knocked the fuck out. It turns out that Hoodoo was working for Magruder all along, and now they're gonna hang you for the murder of Jenny. Waking up in jail, Colton meets a resistance member named Port and a safecracker named Soapy, and they decide to escape together. The next mission has you stealthily taking out guards with a bow while you steal horses for the escape. Soapy heads to Dodge, and Port takes Colton back to his resistance buddies, who aren't too thrilled to see the person who just killed a bunch of them in Empire. But Clay knows who Ned was, so he gladly accepts Colton into the group. The Resistance has a plan to steal a Gatling gun that's being transported from Dodge via train. The plan is to set explosives in a narrow pass and get the train to stop. The only problem is that another Resistance member, Chavez, who we tried to kill earlier, thinks that he could stop the train first. I'm not really sure why this section plays out the way it does, but I guess it does add some variety to the mission. You would think that there would be some sort of communication here. In addition to the Gatling gun, there are captive Apaches on board the train. They're just lucky they weren't a few cars up. There's a tense scene where the Apache leader accuses Colton of killing a bunch of Apache warriors on the bridge. Colton claims that he saved a bunch more, so they should be even. He also reflects on the fact that he could understand their language, despite not being able to speak it at all, which is a weird detail. While celebrating their victory later that night, Clay reminisces about the night he thought Ned was killed. Magruder had been leading a group of men during the Civil War, and they were searching for a city of gold. Magruder was pretty ruthless, demanding an artifact and killing everyone in the process. When Ned objected to his violence, Magruder shot Ned as well. Before we could find out the rest of the story, Magruder's men attack. After fending them off with a sniper rifle, a Gatling gun, and eventually a cannon, the group realizes that Clay has been captured. Colton suggests it's time to take the fight to them. Armed with a cannon, the Resistance storms Empire, and Colton takes out Hoodoo Brown in one of the shortest boss fights of all time.
Why might that be? I'm Hoodoo Brown!
You were.
Now knowing that the cross is the secret to the treasure, and that a piece of it must be on board the sunken steamboat, Colton heads into Dodge to find Soapy the safecracker. But the local saloon crowd has had enough of his shenanigans, and is about to hang him in town square. Sheriff Denton is a little tied up at the moment, so Colton needs to use his new sniper rifle to shoot the rope before Soapy dies. And I shoot a powder keg for good measure. After getting the hell out of Dodge, Colton scopes out the renegade fort, and Soapy demonstrates his complete inability to keep watch, as the duo get captured by renegades, led by a man named Hollister. Colton recognizes Ned's rifle on Hollister's back, so he's definitely dying next. There's another stealth section where you need to free the Indians being tortured by Hollister's men, then assassinate guards to clear a path out of the fort. Anyone who's watched any of my videos should know my affinity for stealth games, so I was pretty happy about how long this section played out. I even scalped a couple of guys for good measure. Just needed to remind you guys that scalping is in this game for absolutely no reason. There is no gameplay benefit. The downed enemies will die after a few seconds anyway. I'd like to imagine that there was a system in place with the Indian merchant where instead of gold you would trade them scalps, or perhaps there was going to be some sort of reputation system with a larger Indian presence in the game. The more scalps you collected, the higher your reputation. Of course, I'm just speculating. It's more likely that you were going to be able to sell the scalps in the game, but they ended up cutting that because this game's depiction of the Indian people is arguably pretty awful already. After escaping the fort, the Indian chief recounts a tale of how they saved Colton's life when he was younger. Colton suggests that they could take down the fort, and then you are just dropped into the mission with almost no context. The budget and time constraints were a little too obvious at this point of the game. The next mission is a fort raid of sorts, and it was significantly tougher than other missions for a few reasons. I died during the opening segment more than I died throughout the rest of the game, I think. I also found myself running out of rifle ammo, which was frustrating, because the next section has enemies placed out of range of the revolvers, so I just had to eat bullets until I got close enough to take them out. Colton uses the fort's cannon to take out the other defenses, allowing the Indians to raid the fort and take it over. The level concludes with a boss fight against Hollister and Colton retrieving Ned's Ferguson rifle. The next confrontation is Reverend Reed at the Steamboat. After Soapy cracks a safe in record time, Reverend Reed shows himself and Colton gets revenge for Jenny. Magruder is not happy, but I spend another hour or so finishing up the side missions before I get to the final chapters. We find out that Colton was the son of the healer that Magruder beheaded in an earlier cutscene, and that Many Wounds, the Apache chief, survived the massacre by hiding outside the village with Colton. Ned survived the gunshot wound and took Colton to raise him as his own, and Many Wounds turned the final piece of the cross into a tomahawk, hiding it in plain sight. With both pieces of the cross, they set out to find the treasure, but have to fight through Magruder's men first. Making it to the top of the mountain, Colton and Soapy discover that Magruder had been digging below the treasure the entire time. Magruder's men shoot them with a cannon, and Soapy tumbles to the bottom of the hill, getting captured. Soapy, not wanting to get another finger blown off, gives up the information to Magruder, who blows off another finger anyway. Poor guy. Colton rescues Soapy and then has to destroy the cannon aboard Magruder's train in one of the most difficult sections of the game. I tried this mission so many times, and the only way I was able to beat it was by utilizing the same trick I used to kill Hollister, just hide and shoot. Clay and Colton hijack the train and use it to ram the gates of the stronghold Magruder has built around the mine. This leads to a sort of on-rails segment where you fire a cannon as it's pushed through the mine. I sound like a broken record, but this section was also extremely difficult. The finale of the game is a boss fight with an armored Magruder, sporting a prototype shotgun resembling a knock gun. It's an 8-barreled shotgun that fires each shot one at a time. It's pretty devastating. And this boss fight took me a long time to not only understand, but also play correctly. Your main weapon here is going to be the explosive bow. Magruder is going to walk around the level over geysers, and you need to time your dynamite to detonate the geyser as he's walking over it. I'm going to show you some behind the scenes really quick. This is my timeline for the gameplay. The orange clips are cutscenes, and the red clips are failed attempts. Yeah, I don't want to talk about it. The second part of the boss fight is a lot easier, as you just have to shoot dynamite as Magruder throws it in the air, in order to destroy the structure he's standing on and bring it down on top of him. Colton escapes with the help of Many Wounds, as Magruder is crushed by the rubble. And that's Gun. Ending not with an epilogue, just some reassuring words from Many Wounds.
Now our fathers can rest in peace.
Before I give my conclusion, there was one more thing I wanted to talk about. Much like their Rockstar counterparts, Gun wasn't without controversy. Not long after the game's release, the Association for American Indian Development launched boycottgun.com, urging visitors to sign a petition demanding that Activision revise the title and remove its negative depictions of American Indians. Their main concern was that the game encourages players to slaughter Indians in a way that promotes, or at least condones, the genocide of a racial group, which, Yeah, I can't really argue with that one. This game does not do a good job of representation. Anyway, once domain ownership eventually lapsed for boycottgun.com, it was scooped up by a porn company. So if that's not the most American ending to that story, I don't know what is. Overall, I really enjoyed Gun. I think Neversoft did a fantastic job on executing the ideas they had for the game. Throughout my 8-hour playthrough, I never felt like the experience was getting boring or dull. The gunplay, mouse acceleration issue aside, was solid and the quick draw system was implemented very well. The stat system gives the game a sense of noticeable progression, like comparing the scene of Colton using the Ferguson during the first mission versus him using it later in the game. My only real critique is that I would have liked to see the weapons being balanced a bit more akin to Call of Juarez Bound in Blood, where the pistol you pick was based on preference of playstyle and not just upgrading to the next best option. I know that might be a bit nitpicky, but that is really one of the only bad things I could say about this game. It may feel a bit rushed at times and a little dated, but those are things I could forgive as the product as a whole feels like a love letter written to a very gritty and ruthless Wild West. Unfortunately, due to Activision acquiring the rights to Guitar Hero, Neversoft would be burdened with that series until the world had enough of rhythm games. Then they were reduced to supporting Call of Duty in 2011, eventually being merged into Infinity Ward in 2014. So we never got a proper sequel to Gun, despite some ideas floating around the company at the time. Which is pretty disappointing as there is a ton of potential for storytelling still left in this world. But that was my time with Gun. What did you think about the game? Leave your opinions in the comments below, and until my next video, thanks for watching.